This is the Minding Your Own Business podcast, brought to you by Elder Research. Each episode will bring in data and analytics gurus from around the world as they regale us with their data analytics stories and enlighten us with their secrets for how to turn data into actionable insights. Now, here's our host, Evan Wimpey, who will guide us as we dare to mind our own business.
Hello and welcome to the Minding Your Own Business podcast. I'm your host, Evan Wimpey. Today, super excited to introduce our guest, who is Nirmal Budhathoki. Nirmal is a senior data scientist at a company called Microsoft that I think most of our listeners might have heard of before. And he works on cloud security, which is new to this show. So super excited to learn a little bit about Nirmal and his role there. Nirmal, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. And thank you every listeners and audience that will try to cover cloud security. I think I always feel like security and data science has a good intersection. Even if it is a rare intersection, it is interesting in itself. So I'm glad to be here and excited to explore more.
Awesome. Yeah. Looking forward to digging in. Nirmal, maybe to get started, can you just give us a little bit about your own personal background and how you got into the space?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I actually started my data science career, not that I intended to. If I look back, so I did always have a interest or fascination towards data. However, the career path itself was not as linear as I thought it would be. I came to US in 2007 to do my master's. 2009 I graduated. Obviously, everyone remembers a big recession year in US. It was kind of hard for me to find the tech roles that I wanted. Then, I joined US Army, which was completely orthogonal to my career plan. But at that point, I think that was best decision that I saw. And then weighing in all the factors, I went in to join US Army, served for 4 years, but if I look back, that was actually one of my best decisions in career that has kind of pivoting from many decisions after that. I got my first data analyst job in cyber after the military career with the US federal government. So I was working for their cyber defense command. So I would say that was my real first data analytics role when I started playing with the tools, like analytics tool, and then in the data, digging into the data. So cyber data was interesting in itself because obviously it's messy. It's even at that point of time when the big data tools was not much popular. It was somewhere around like 2000 and like a 14, but I think it was getting popular. The Hadoop and everything was getting popular, but not too common as today. But I think trying to figure out ways of how to analyze the data in the available tools like Excel or any other, simple pandas packages, so was challenging. But I learned a lot during that 5 years of career with government. Then I did my master's in data science during that time, and then that opened up more doors for me. I picked up my first data scientist title with Wells Fargo after that. And then that actually began my data scientist career officially. Working in fintech was interesting, but I always wanted to go back to cyber. And that's when I got offer from Microsoft, to work in the security products. And then here I am today.
We've met outside the show. We've spoken a little bit before, and I never put together how similar our timelines were. I was graduated in 2008, struggled, floated around, joined the Marine Corps, and then studied analytics after I got out of the Marine Corps, always sort of with a hint of data in there. Seemed very, very similar. So
yeah. We were in parallel path around the same timestamp.
Yeah. East Coast, West Coast. Yeah. That's great. And you speak about security data, and it almost seems intuitive, but maybe it's it is a sort of a rare thing. I think it's a less common focus area for a data scientist. So maybe can you give us just sort of a brief overview of how data science supports security? And if you've got like an example that you could talk about, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So I would definitely agree with your point that it's not as commonly spoken or talked about field. One of the major reason is it's hard to find the data to just even do my own self learning. So if I just go around right now in any Kaggle or any other publicly available data set, it's much easier to find any other data, sales data, e-commerce data. You think about it, but cyber related data, it's hard. One of the main reason is nobody wants to obviously give away their network information, right? So
Sure.
it's kind of challenging when someone wants to kind of like build the skills or get into this cyber data science side. However, it has improved a lot. So uh, I think how data science actually supports cloud security, there are many ways. I think if I have to just remember a few of the main ones, it will be like anomaly detection is one of the common ones, where you uh, maybe build your baseline based on the regular traffic or behavior of the users or devices, and then you're going to start track what is anomaly versus not. Then there are use cases like alerts classification. Obviously, the Security Operations Center or SOC, they are always overflooded with the alerts. There are so many endpoint security products. They're gonna keep firing the alerts. Uh, 1% of them are genuine alerts, but most of the times, it could be false positives. It could be just benign positives. However, their queue, we cannot just overflow their queue, right? So ultimately, there is a very good scope of machine learning. And today, I think a lot of startups even working on that direction, that how do you effectively and efficiently classify these alerts into different categories, right? So maybe the machine learning will be very helpful there. That's one thing. Then uh, same thing when I mentioned about alerts, there could be a lot of false positives. So, like, can you fine tune your models to reduce the false positives, right? So false positive reduction is also very interesting. Then there's another thing that's popping up lately. It's been a while, but more common these days because of something called users. We work from like different hybrid locations these days, right? So users behavior or something called user entity behavior analysis, UEBA, right? So it's very popular. So UEBA is getting because of these large language models or anything, right? Like the deep learning models is getting popular. The size or amount of data to process that, like I could be logging in by my home, but in maybe like 20 minutes, if I logged in from some IP address from the New York City, I think that should be a little bit uncommon, right? So, so that's just very straight, simple example, but there could be more complicated scenarios where they have to track the user's behavior based on the activities, and then they can create a good baseline to say something. This is true positive versus false positives, right? So those are some examples, yeah. And I think there are many coming up. Obviously, this is some of the top of the ones that I think of, and yeah, I think these are some of the use cases that always makes this field interesting, at least for me, just always
For
enjoying
sure.
it.
Yeah. Awesome. It's very exciting. And I think to like the more like common front of mind use cases in marketing or in sales. And you often think about an end user as the marketing person. And there's oftentimes felt or real some tension between, well, here's
Mhm.
what sort of analytics shows, and here's what, the business intuition, knowledge, historical practices. But in my mind, my perception is that a security, an IT department, maybe if you clarify sort of who your business stakeholders are. And it seems like a sort of a technology driven end user that would be more receptive, that would be more open to advanced analytics to machine learning, trying to help out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, you got it right. So basically, when we, like do the projects, especially the customer, some of it could be based on the company size and how it operates, right? So it could be internal customers. Most of the products sometimes we build our internal customers too. And then if you are building something as a SaaS product that, like you can probably sell off to third-party customers as well. Like in Microsoft scale, we're talking about products like Sentinel, which is obviously available to all the users, where they can log into the portal, the MS cloud portal, and then in the cloud portal they can see all the devices or everything within their subscription. What is the health monitoring, right? So security health monitoring system kind of thing. But yeah, I think there are different models, like using just by internal teams, right? So then you have more leverage of how to handle the data security compliance. For third party customers, you have to go with a little bit more rigorous process, right, than what you go for your internal customers, things like that. So
Certainly. Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned, getting the data and getting access to data is challenging. I'm curious, and maybe maybe this is from our military background as well. I think in security, always ideally you want to be proactive and see the new things, but with like traditional machine learning, we usually think you're learning from known historical cases. You're learning from labeled data in the past. Is there an opportunity? You did mention anomaly detection too, so maybe that's it. But are there opportunities to try to be proactive and be ahead of whatever the potential security threats?
Yeah, I think this is a very good topic. I think historically or traditionally, most of the security tools or security companies have been, and we still do, every company still does it, the reactive approach, right? Especially for your training data, or even to learn what's going on with your network, or kind of learn from what was your weakness in the past, to recorrect that, rectify that. However, I think one of the main challenge of doing reactive way is it's not going to scale. I mean, we keep doing reactive mode. I think I think it's not going to work. I mean, the defender side, like it's always going to be on that resource crunch, time crunch, because the hackers or offenders, they're going to come up with new techniques, new technologies, all of these LLMs and everything that we are seeing. They already have their hands on, they're already using it, they're already figuring out new ways to create the attack vectors. So this kind of things, I think it's never going to be, defenders can never catch up if we only stay on the reactive mode. And that is why I think the industry is shifting, the security industry is shifting to proactive or predictive mode. And this is where we can use the power of ML, right? So basically, even if we are doing the analysis of historical data or cases that happened, how can we leverage or learn something, right? So establish a pattern or something, so we can understand what is coming or what's going to happen, right? I think this is where the power of these advanced models can also help us. Like there could be some patterns which traditional ML is not picking up, because traditional ML is only feature based, the features that we created.
Sure.
Most of the times we don't know what attribute matters versus not, right? We want the models to learn these features automatically. So the deep learning will bring the auto feature engineering capability. So I think that's where it's probably going to help us to do a little bit better on doing the proactive way of defense, right? So yeah, I think this is definitely the direction we should go, and we are already like many of the projects that I am also involved in. So we are thinking about like, hey, how do we put the predictive model in place, and this is where I think we have to be very cautious about evaluating our models also, that we build something and then if it is producing too many of false positives, then are we kind of like making the problem better or making the problem worse?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge, but yeah, I think definitely have to be on proactive mode, because if not, then we will never catch up.
I, that seems spot on. And you've mentioned a lot of false positives multiple times. And I think, at least for me, my intuition is you want to make sure you identify the threats. But like earlier, you spoke about the alerting system. If you alert everything, then it's useless. Yeah.
It's useless.
So trying to cut down on all of the false positives. Yes. It's a tough challenge for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Nirmal, you also mentioned LLMs, and Microsoft has obviously been one of or the biggest player in the last year or so. They've gotten so popular. Have those worked their way into your work at all, either as a tool that you can use or as a tool that Microsoft has that you need to be able to help identify security threats that are associated with the LLM platforms that they have?
Yeah, so I think one of the best thing about Microsoft is we do adopt the tools in a faster pace, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we adopt in the right way as well. Unless and until we figure out, the process in place is accounted for, the compliance, how the LLMs models are behaving. Is there a proper evaluation technique is in place? Do we even do all the meta prompts or those kind of validation? How it is behaving to the data that we are giving it to it. Are we using a fine-tuned version, or we are using the RAG or retrieval augmented version? So there's so many things they want us to do, a lot of due diligence or the compliance checks beforehand, and which is good. I think we want to do the fail first mode, but at the same time, you don't want to fail on both product and security, right? So security is never a compromise, especially in Microsoft, which is what I always admire about. And then today, like LLM models, I think if you look about it, as you mentioned, Microsoft is in the forefront. We have the capability or access to use all the OpenAI models, but at the same time, they are also putting enough guardrails on us that you use it properly, right? So I have come across, we are currently exploring few models for building the proof of concept. And again, just meeting all these guardrails is like, once you build the proof of concept, and then you can do some testing with some sample data. And then you can evaluate your models before these models even go in production, things like that. You want to make sure that you are doing it more securely. Your data is not being logged for external third parties to rely and train on it, because you may have sensitive data. So how are you isolating everything and still getting the full-fledged capability of LLMs, right? So those are a few things that we are figuring out and working on it. However, I can see there are potential, a lot of use case and opportunities. Even the use case we talked about before, because LLMs can be fine-tuned for classifications, right? LLM can be fine-tuned for summarization. LLMs can be fine-tuned to go through all the historical documents and all the TSGs or SOPs, every notebooks that has been created, if they have all the artifacts or facts, whatever there is, right? So we can it's easy these days to build upon a chat or conversational tool on top of that, so the security analysts don't have to spend too much time finding the document. They can just, do the Q&A session with the LLM agent, right? So there's a lot of potential use cases, but obviously you have to take with a grain of salt, right, as they say. So we are evaluating and making sure all this, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, right? So we want to make sure we do it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's super exciting. And I doubt that Microsoft ever has a hard time attracting talent to the space, but I would think in the world that's moved so quickly in the large language models, it seems hard pressed to find a better place to attract talent right now, because you've got access to everything. And as you just spoke about, you're doing things the right way. You're being careful the way
Mm-hmm.
things are monitored, the way things are implemented. So I suspect that it's not too hard for you to
Yeah.
attract talent, to get some job applicants.
Oh yeah, definitely. We are seeing a big influx in some of the job titles being posted by Microsoft around this area. I actually love seeing the jobs even on the responsible AI side. We do see a lot in Microsoft, so I think the privacy side, data privacy side, and which are important because we're going to have to do it not only from the technical aspect, but also from the process or policy aspect, right? Compliance aspect.
Sure.
Yeah. As an engineer or technical person, sometimes you feel like it could be, like a process heavy or time consuming, but you have to make sure you have to evaluate both sides, right? So I see a lot of startups these days, like they are trying to jump in the LLM seat too fast to drive,
Sure.
but you have to make sure you are considering all these factors,
Sure. Maybe in sort of a similar vein to job applicants, there are a lot of people in the space that are looking for jobs. Nirmal, we've been connected in some community-based events before this. I know that you're super active. I see you on LinkedIn pretty often. Can you talk about some of your involvement in either security or just data science generally outside of Microsoft, sort of just as being part of the community?
Yeah. Thanks for including that aspect to the conversation. I think I am fairly active in LinkedIn. I do like to share back knowledge to the community. I'm a firm believer that we can learn, because I myself learned quite a bit from the other folks who has been sharing contents, very relevant contents. So I try my best to do on the data science, sometimes being the topic of security, most of the times like ML related contents. And then I also do my own analysis, being a data person, obviously analyze my own audience demographics. Then I realize most of my audience is the new grads or the early career data scientists. So the way I write contents is kind of targeting that majority of the population of my audience. And I have been getting a positive feedback that it has helped them somewhere in their career, to build up the skills or whatever the way it is. I welcome everyone to connect with me, and if there's any questions or anything, we can do mentoring session. I also offer mentoring sessions for free. Done like more than 700 mentoring sessions so far, which is if I look back, it's crazy. I'm like, wow, how did I manage to do that?
Wow, that is
So
incredible. Over what roughly time frame is that 700
so
mentoring sessions?
on average, I was doing the math the other day. I was like, hey, some of the calls were 15 to 20 minutes calls. Some of them were like 30 to 40 minutes calls. So on average, if I took 30 minutes per session, so it's roughly 350 hours, right? So of commitment. And that's, really feel good that, not only that I feel good because I spend that much time, but like the impact of that, I always measure the impact, right? So I started getting
Sure.
people's responses that, hey, some folks have just, like help them to get a job, with their resume reviews, or even to have a start conversation about the interview, how to prep for particular company or particular role, right? So, and it's very fascinating, and I motivating, especially when I hear from those folks, and I will continue this path, so.
That's incredible. What a positive impact for the community and helping the community grow. And if you're listening to this, don't try to, if you're driving, don't try to click around, but we'll definitely, in the show notes, we'll definitely include a link to, is LinkedIn the best place for folks who are interested in mentoring or having one of those discussions with you?
Yeah. LinkedIn is the best place, and
Great.
I will be looking forward to connecting.
Great. We will definitely put it in there. I'll try to get 700 more mentees that
Thank you.
Nirmal can help out. Nirmal, I do want to ask you one more question. there's a lot going on at Microsoft. There's a lot of products coming out. There's a lot of advancements in both analytics. There's a lot to try to do to catch up to in the security world, as always. If everybody at Microsoft was behind your vision and you got to put the resources towards whatever project, whatever product, whatever thing you wanted to, where would you point your efforts? Where would you try to go?
Oh yeah, so interesting. So I would probably put a lot of effort on the optimization of workflows. So I mean, there's a lot of work going on as well. Regardless of what model we use, or like how do we solve the problem, the main thing is to identify what is the problem, right? So for me, if I have to put time and effort, and if I had the opportunity to do it, I would probably uh, like pull all the work flows, especially what are the workflows in securities, right? Look, alert processing is one, right? So there could be many, right? So like if someone got some submission of the case or vulnerability report, how are they processing it, how they are triaging it? So basically the goal is to pull all these workflows and then look into these workflows, where are the bottlenecks, right? So basically you want to impact with this technology or the ML system, then the one of the major impact will be time savings. We don't always, especially in security, we don't always generate the straightforward ROIs, right? So it's
Sure.
just the revenues are, I mean, time is money, right? We have to think that way. So how many folks you are putting in the security operations center right now, and then if you build something, how much cost reduction you can make? And that's obviously cost saving is your impact. So I would probably do like pull up all the workflows and see where the bottlenecks are, and then if it's a feasible ML problem, and then try to tackle that way. I think just the automation of the workflow is gonna be the best uh, for the buck. So
Awesome. I, I think that's a really telling answer. I think a lot of folks probably, that are as familiar as I am with Microsoft,
mhm.
where it's a big brand name and they're high tech and they're great. You think, oh, all their workflows must be perfectly optimized and streamlined to be able to scale and do the things they do. So I think it's an encouraging answer that you would say something like that to listeners and other organizations that maybe feel like they're behind. Well, everybody's trying to optimize workflows. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great answer.
Also, to add a little bit would be sometimes we think of solving the problem 100% at a time, and in my own experience, if I'm looking back, there could be many low hanging fruits, right? So there could be many uh, things that you can take care of right away, right, with simple process in place or building a simple model in place. You don't really have to build a complex model to solve everything 100%, right? So you need to do that a lot of data analysis ahead of time. So that's why I say that the data analysis, you have to spend a lot of time in exploration, stage, because there could be like 80-20 rules you can apply, right? Like
Sure.
80% of your things you can solve with the 20% of resource or something you can build. So always focus on that, because even solving that most common problems is already helping your customers or making your system better, to think in that way as well.
Spot on. Awesome. Nirmal, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Nirmal Budhathoki from Microsoft. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.